Welcome to the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek. Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek delivers a look into the world of manufacturing, focus on stories, trends with developers, manufacturers, providers, and OEMs, and items that lead to better solutions. Our guests typically share tips and outcomes that will improve the productivity and what they're using in the industry to help customers and other manufacturers basically improve their processes and things go. I'm your host, Matt Susi. I'm a technical consultant with Grantek in the digital solutions and some consulting group. I work with our customers and manufacturers on improving the processes through the Industry 4.0 and other technologies like AI, DevOps, and other such items. Today, I'm privileged to be joined by Sam Russem of Kanoa. Sam's passionate about the concepts of smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, digital transformation, and AI. He's been studying, discussing, evaluating, developing, and planning how we can apply innovations in computing, networking, data to the manufacturing space. Sam believes that smart manufacturing technologies can improve our everyday lives, delivering new and innovative products to market safely, efficiently, and at a lower cost than ever before. He's got over 16 years in manufacturing and automation, a lot of hands-on experience commissioning with a wide range of technologies from PLC and SCADA-based control systems, advanced data collection historians, IoT devices, MES, and analytics in industries ranging from food and beverage, pharmaceuticals, and renewable energy. Today, Sam leverages that experience along with the latest trends and techniques in smart manufacturing Industry 4.0 to manufacturers around the world through professional consulting, product management, and thought leadership through his most recent employer, Kanoa. With that, thank you, Sam, for joining the Industry 4.0 podcast, and I'll hand it over for you to kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Matt. I think you mean welcome back.
Welcome back.
Industry 4.0 podcast. Yes. If you don't know, I used to host this show back in the day. I got my start doing all of those things that Matt talked about at Grantek, where I worked for 14 years. So a lot of that background that Matt just mentioned about me doing PLCs and SCADA work and things like that, I did as a systems engineer at Grantek for a number of years. I did some work in project management. I ran the smart manufacturing solutions group and strategy for a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of some of my background and kind of how I cut my teeth and got involved in manufacturing and smart manufacturing. So it's fun to come full circle and be back and in this new position where I am working with a software vendor, right? So me and some of my co-founders made Kanoa a number of years ago. Kanoa's been around for 8 or 9 years, but we kind of pivoted as I joined the team and productized some of our solutions about 3 years ago. So we make our Kanoa NES solution suite, which is a plug-in to Ignition and gives customers a number of different MES, the smart manufacturing capabilities, depending on what pieces of our software they buy, from OEE and downtime tracking to scheduling to traceability to quality forms and SPC. So a lot of the kind of additional manufacturing intelligence and kind of data processing that we can do with all this awesome data that we get in Ignition, Kanoa gives you an out-of-the-box solution for all of that. So yeah, happy to talk about that today. Happy to have Grantek as a partner in our integrator program. And let's chat about Industry 4.0 and what's going on.
Amazing. And we'll kick it right off there. I want to talk a little bit about what Industry 4.0 means to you, Sam, what your experiences are with it, and just kind of your viewpoint of where it's kind of evolving and going to right now.
Yeah. The funny thing about it is I hadn't thought about that term very much until you guys tried to book me for this podcast again. I mean, yeah, Industry 4.0 as a term kind of seems like it is kind of fading away a little bit, right? You still hear an occasional like LinkedIn post about it or people saying like, are we in Industry 5.0? Now people are kind of talking a lot more about AI and manufacturing, right? So as I kind of look back at it, and when did we start this podcast? It's probably like 5-6 years ago now, right? That we've been kind of talking about Industry 4.0, right? So I think looking back at it, I see a lot of it as kind of a trend, like more of a marketing thing to talk about and more overarching kind of evolution of companies getting more digitized, more computerized, kind of having their PLCs and controls evolve into more elaborate control and computerized systems that does involve now connecting to the cloud and AI. But I kind of do see it all as one big thing, right? That we kind of had this era of digital, of moving manual controls into more automated computer-based control systems. All of this AI and processing and SCADA that we're doing these days is still just all more advanced computer systems. I kind of see it all as one bigger thing around companies just always trying to adopt software and new technology and get their competitive edge that way.
And I think you bring up a good point about the competitive edge, right? The industry has always been going, we've always been squeezing to be more efficient, to be more effective with our resources, to get more out of less, essentially, right? And with anything like this, Industry 4.0 kind of introduced what I'll say is rapid development, right? As anything goes with rapidness, are you starting to find that there's a skill force gap? Like we're seeing the workforce struggling to get these skills as we have this, rapid launch into AI and other things?
I do. I really do. And I think that we have real opportunities there as well. So, as I talk to a lot of kind of manufacturers that are out there and systems integrators, I do think there is a lack of talent out, especially with that manufacturing expertise. Um, I know Grantek's mostly kind of based in Canada. In the US, there's an active kind of discussion going on around how to bring a lot of manufacturing back into the US, but kind of a separate but I think related story that's been happening is a lot of computer science majors that are graduating and not being able to find jobs, right? And there's kind of disillusionment of, in the dot-com boom and things like that. There was kind of this idea that if you went to college and you got a degree in computer engineering, like you'd get a six-figure plus job at an Amazon or a Google and you'd be set for life and like you'd be good. And that's just not there as much anymore. And we have a lot of people graduating with good technical background that know how computers work, that know bits and bytes and can program. But I think that manufacturing is still often thought of as like dirty assembly line style work that is very different than that computer engineering, when really that's exactly what we need, right? We need more people that are taking that computer knowledge, that programming knowledge, and applying that to real world things. And manufacturing is a very good use case for that I think is kind of getting missed in the whole conversation.
I think you bring up a really good point where we need to start kind of dispelling that whole viewpoint of what manufacturing is, that it's not just entering into a plant and per se getting covered in oil as you're trying to manufacture a piece. That, there's many different technologies and ways that we're improving manufacturing, and we need to get people more kind of excited about what's going on there, excited for the technologies that we're bringing in there, right? Not everything is the Silicon Valley, so to speak, but let's say we're pulling in AI to use machine vision or machine learning to identify defects in parts for quality or understand where you're starting to trend in the wrong way so you can do preventative maintenance right off the bat. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think you're kind of identifying there's a great opportunity that we have to kind of reinvigorate manufacturing and really bring it back to the forefront, both in the US and for Canada. Now, with that kind of sentiment, do you think in the manufacturing world, the plant managers, the executives, the operators, supervisors, there's that same excitement there that they want to see this technology and want to start pulling it in more?
Yeah, and I think that enthusiasm can be helpful or misguided, kind of depending on who it's coming from and why, right? I do to kind of stereotype the two kind of personas that you mentioned there, right? If I'm a plant manager, I am very focused usually on my plant and my numbers, and I have a certain amount of product that I'm expected to deliver into the supply chain with a certain amount of operational expenses to get that done. And it is all about, did I hit those numbers? And I don't care if it's technology. I don't care if it's me process. I don't care if it's me hiring this great person, right? If it makes those economics better and lets me hit those delivery dates at a more profitable margin as a plant manager, I don't care how you did. right? Whereas I see a lot of execs coming in and being like, AI. Yeah. And they still technically have the same goal, right? I mean, they're thinking I got to hit quarterly profits. They're probably arguing a lot of the time. I'm looking at a bigger picture vision of this company. And over 5, 10 years, if we don't start adopting AI, we're going to fall behind. But I think that's as we talked about a little bit earlier, right? These trends come and go. They change over those 5 to 10 year horizons. I find those plant managers are usually having a bigger impact on their companies, frankly, that I think a lot of the kind of execs, if you're chasing technology, especially if you're chasing technology at a very high level of influence and power in your company, you can end up wasting a lot of time and money. I love working with plant managers that are just like, I'm here to solve problems. If you have a good tool that solves this problem, you're the guy for me, right?
And that's what you are looking for. That's what we're all kind of looking for, is that we want to solve the problem. We want to get the issue there. I feel we don't want to just slap that AI is going to solve all your issues, right? And also understand that, yeah, we want to bring AI or bring these little features into your plant. You also have to slowly upgrade your plant too, right? We forget that we've always gotten the ethos of manufacturing that don't fix what isn't broken. So there are controllers out there from the 60s, 70s, 80s that are still running, and they're running great, but now they're obsolete. They don't communicate. They're data silos, right? And we have to start planning how to get that data out. We have to start planning how to get that interconnectivity there and have it be able to, plug into AI and other things. People kind of forget that Industry 4.0 was about that unification, right? Was about that connectivity.
Yeah, right. We bicker about that all the time, kind of in this industry, right? As you'll go to a conference, they'll talk about how AI is consuming all this manufacturing data and changing everything. And we're like, I know that plant has like a total of 2 machines on its network, and they don't have, and none of it's documented, and it doesn't really get the data properly, and they say it's always wrong. Like, and that's, I think, it kind of comes back to even the skills gap part of it, right? I think that people are chasing this end goal without necessarily wanting to acknowledge the real legwork that needs to be put in to get you there. And part of it is that those skills are hard to find, right? And it's harder, less sexy work to go out there and add in all these IoT devices and start plugging things into the network so you can get it to a data hub so that only then you can start using this AI. Like, I don't know, that's a longer and more involved process than I think a lot of these big technology companies are selling. But that's because they don't really understand that there is this plan forward level that needs to be there to support those big data, right? It's not, yes, AI is awesome at being able to plug and play and solve a lot of problems quickly, but it needs the data to do it. And it's not solving the how do I get the data problem.
And I think that's, like you said, that's where a lot of manufacturers are having that struggle, that misunderstanding, right? That, I want it as these tools, I want to have it there, but are you yourself as the manufacturer ready for that? And if not, how are you starting to address, the plan for it? Because an AI agent or other such tool isn't going to be immediately ready if you yourself are not ready, despite you thinking that you're ready, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I hope this isn't too pitchy. I think it's really kind of just more around like the experience. So, thinking about what we're doing at Kanoa all the time, right? So one of our products is an OEE engine. You plug in some in-feed counters, out-feed counters, a state tag. We can deliver a lot of production data back to you. Something as simple as that, though, right? Just talking about 3 data points per piece of equipment or thing you want to measure can become a very elaborate conversation with a lot of customers, right? Maybe you have that type of information for some of your machines, but not others, or other machines kind of count it slightly differently. Some probably aren't connected to the network at all, right? So our software has answers for all of that, right? You can plug in tags over here, you can script that there, you can use manual entry screens if you don't have data connectivity. But that complexity is still a roadblock for some people. Just trying to kind of conceptualize that I don't have this data at my fingertips and I need the results is a tough thing for people to navigate and get through.
And that's a really good way of putting it. It's a tough thing for them to navigate, to get through, to kind of follow that path, right? You've had many conversations, you've talked to many manufacturers, both in your time at Grantek and especially your time now with Kanoa. Is there a common problem that you find customers kind of come to you? Is it data connectivity? Is it how they collect their data? Everyone has their own spin, maybe particular to their processes or to their industry. Is there any like commonalities you find across all of them that you guys have been kind of helping to solve?
Yeah, it's one of the things I reflect on being very different now, working on the software side of things from when I was at a systems integrator, right? As an integrator, you'll get called by customers and just say like, "I need smart manufacturing. Tell me what to do," or like,
Yeah.
tell me what, and it can turn into a really long sales cycle with a lot of different options and not a lot of direction. It can become difficult, right? One of the nice things about software is that people call me and they say, "I need this." And I could either say, "Yes, we do that. No, we don't do that." Or it's somewhere in the middle. It would take some programming. But yeah, it's kind of in the realm of possibility. There's kind of only three answers I have. Like, so if somebody comes to me and says, "I need the best in class, batch optimization and management control tool," I'm like, "Oh, awesome. That's not what we do. Good luck finding it."
Right. I feel like that's outside of our skill set, or not our even our skill set, but that's not out of our product offering, right?
Yeah. So the two that I get and engage with the most frequently, maybe I'll say, one of them is still downtime, right? That has been around forever. The number of customers that still can't tell you how much they ran and when they didn't run, why they didn't run with data they believe in is really hard to find, right? And I think that a lot of customers, even if they're struggling, they'll come to us and kind of still be struggling with that for a specific area, when really what they're looking for is like mass adoption of it, right? Which is even, again, it's a relatively low hanging fruit, but it's still a decently complex problem. If I want to be able to see all of my downtimes across all of my equipment in the same way, in the same form and format, so I can do apples to apples comparisons, that's tough when you have a lot of different pieces of equipment that aren't designed to be apples to apples, right? And as we do that too, at least on the Kanoa side, we're like, well, for tracking downtime, why aren't we tracking your production counts and things like too? And just trying to automate some of that basic production reporting is it still the main thing that people are calling me about. So I think the other thing that I need to mention alongside of it, which has been really cool to see, is around traceability data, right? So that first category is downtime with a little bit of production reporting, how much I made, things like that. I've found a couple of customers though now at this point that's, we almost always recommend that people start with Kanoa Ops, that OEE and scheduling engine, but a lot of Kanoa Trace is a module you can add to that, starts to do your material genealogy and traceability. And we found a lot of customers that came to us asking for ops data in the first place needed trace data. That was really kind of the end goal of what they were looking for. And they just might not have known it, or they assumed it was such a significantly more complex problem that they couldn't tackle it. I'll give you an example. We have a customer that makes complex electronic devices. It's a very manual assembly heavy process. And they came to us first kind of looking for an OEE type system, right? We're calculating OEE, we're giving them efficiency on the line. It's still not solving their main problem though, of like I kind of need to at a glance understand how we're producing right now and how we've done on the day. And what they really needed was more of a snapshot of where every part is, how many stations it's gone through, has it gone through rework, like how many times has it cycled through this test bench, And all of that was traceability data, really kind of getting out of the sense of what did I make in this shift and into every individual part, where did it go and how did it get there and how long did it take to process at that material level. They thought that was just too complicated of a problem to solve, but it was the right problem to solve, and in doing so, it made it a lot easier actually than trying to kind of get similar metrics using different tools and trying to abstract out that complexity. Does that make sense?
It does. I think you bring up a good point, right? Because when we kind of started this line of thought, we're about our manufacturing really comes back to how long did we run? What were the downtimes? What was the reason for it? How do I do a root cause analysis to it, right? And we kind of take for granted the material tracking or the actual traceability of things, of like how many cycles did we run? What were the products in it? Is there a problem with our lot? How do we go back from almost like a QA kind of perspective of, where did the issues arise here? And was it because of our traceability, or are we going to have future problems with these parts we manufactured down the road? Do you think this is kind of like a a blind spot manufacturing kind of overlooked? Like we've always been aware of it. We've always needed it for things like recalls and for a way to kind of track things. But do you think with the shift in industry, we have better visibility now using tools like what Kanoa is providing with Trace?
I hope so. I think there's big opportunity there, right? The way I this is my uninformed opinion of kind of like what I think is going on here is you're always going to have some level of traceability and recall control through your supply chain management system, right? Even if I don't know that this box of products came on this pallet from this factory, from this batch on this day, right? Like I can still generally, with enough of a window, kind of say, okay, well, any product I might have made on this line within this week is, potentially affected. So shut it all down. And people trying to get to more granularity than that, I think they've been making an economic decision, right? That the complexity of getting the data connectivity to have more granular recalls and per item kind of controls is just not worth it compared to the actual amount of recalls they do and the scope and price of those recalls. I think and hope that that's changing, right? Kind of in a combination of maybe the price of recalls going up and the cost of the software going down, right? I do think that with the way social media works, if you're a consumer company and something can affect your brands, recalls can be really important and really hurt you a lot, right? So that's something you really need to pay attention to. But also I've done a lot of very complex traceability projects. I don't want to brag too much about our software, but like we can do them so much faster than I'd ever seen before. And again, like with flexible software, traceability is still complicated because manufacturing is complicated and needs to follow your process very exactly to be useful. And it kind of always needs to be right. There's very little room for error for that traceability data to be useful. So it is a complex problem to solve by design, but there's other software, I think ours is included, that's making that easier all the time and hopefully is making that ROI calculation more justifiable for a lot of those manufacturers.
I think that's pretty interesting, right? Because in Industry 4.0, or as we kind of see this evolution of the industry, everyone talks about the return on investment. Every conversation, every pilot is, what is the return on investment? What is it? And we can kind of get, as we kind of talked at the start of this call, enamored with, the flashy, the AI, the analytics and this and that. But some of the core manufacturing, like traceability, is a great opportunity, right? It's a great return on investment. You get that granularity. You understand where things are breaking down, where your quality is being dropped off, where you can do, recalls. And we can also realize kind of what you've kind of been leading to is that all that data can then be fed elsewhere, right? We've kind of made it generalized. We've made it accessible. We made it ready that it's clean and ready to be put into other systems. That is kind of fair to say.
Yeah, and actually, I want to drill down into it a little bit too, because it comes up a lot in selling MES software. I know you and I would talk about this a lot at Grantek too, right? Where the MES itself can get you some ROI, but it's more of a tool to help you find other ROIs, right? So an MES by its nature is a data capture and analysis tool. Um, I can tell you all day that, hey, every single time you run this part, you make 20% more scrap than when you run other parts. But unless then you make a project to go in and make less scrap when you run that part, you're not making any more money. It's just information, right? Uh, so
Just
So MES can still, I think there's a number out there, like generally by installing an OEE system, you get just a 2 to 3% bump in OEE, which is a funny number in the first place, right? Because you'd think that would change a lot if you start at 20% or if you start at 90%. But anyways, so there is like a visibility bonus, right? The idea of getting information out there, kind of reducing paper and manual entry and kind of digitizing that. There is some gain to be made, but a lot of the systems that we work at in smart manufacturing are to deliver tools and information to other informed parties to get bigger ROIs for other projects, right? It is something like I have identified that we have a consistent scrap reason that is really hurting our bottom line. And now that I can quantify how much that's hurting my bottom line, I know how much I can spend for an ROI on that project to get it done, right?
I see. it's almost like the facilitator or the catalyst to the bigger and grander kind of projects almost, right? Like you can't really those other projects without, putting this investment in. So your ROI isn't immediate necessarily, but it's what it facilitates and grows into, right? You're more not necessarily gatekeeper in the situation, right? But you are the facilitator. You're the enabler for this.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk more about scrap. I think that's one of the most tangible examples. But scrap is always something that just hits your bottom line, right? It is wasted time, materials, and a lot of plant managers would be able to tell you we average X% scrap, right? Every time we run, I just accommodate that 30% of anything that we get in is going to get scrapped and not make it to the end of the line, right? And I just have that as a line item in my budget when I do my annual forecast. If you wanted to start to reduce that 30%, that's where a platform like an MES can really start to help you, right? What are the opportunities that we have to take that 30% number down? Do we have a specific scrap reason that makes the majority of that? Do we have certain products that happen to run more scrap? Just third shift run more scrap than first and second shift, right? Being able to actually quantitatively answer some of those questions will help you figure out what projects and opportunities you have to reduce that number and improve your bottom line.
And you got my mind kind of going here now. Scrap is a great example, right? We talk about, is our shift increasing on shift A versus shift B? Is it increasing if we have, 7 operators or 8 operators? Is it happening on line A with X machine and line Y with, different machines there, right? Do you think at the core of it in manufacturing, scrap is the biggest challenge that we're having today? Do you think it's the traceability? Do you think it's an overall, legacy equipment? Loaded question, right? But
Yeah.
kind of comes full circle.
No, that's so I had a very specific conversation with an old buddy of mine who was a high level engineer in a big food and beverage company in the US, right? And we were talking about exactly this, right? Like, hey man, when we used to kind of work, I would pitch to you all the time, right? And we would always talk about ROI, and you would never tell me kind of your true cost centers. You had to be a little cagey about it. But like, what was the answer? Like, what was I supposed to say?
Yeah. What was the magic? What was the skeleton key? Right? What was around that door?
It was scrap. That was why I brought it up, because so what we talked about was that, traceability and recall control. Yes, it is something that it's kind of the thing I talked about earlier. It's something that everybody has to do, especially for a food and beverage company, right? Like being able to effectively recall is important, but it's all risk mitigation. And it's sometimes like more of a supply chain thing that is an engineering thing. It might not even hit your cost center, right? So it's really important. Something that a lot of companies aspire to be better at, but a direct ROI driver, a little bit tough. Downtime was another one that really surprised me, actually, because downtime is essentially a sunk cost on a lot of these lines, right? If you have downtime, but you still can make all of your orders at the end of the day, you've already paid for all of that labor. You actually did make your order at the end of the day, right? So you actually didn't accrue a lot of actual sunk extra cost to it, unless you needed to like pay it overtime or miss an order to a client and have to pay a penalty around it, right? If you have flexibility in your schedule, downtime doesn't hurt you so bad. Scrap, though, scrap's just money out the door. Scrap's money out the door every single time, no matter what. It's you have to reprocess it. It's extra time. You need to scrap it entirely. It's just lost profit. Anything that can reduce scrap is just direct bottom line fuel to everything else you do.
That's the number one hitter, right? That's the number one way to improve, or I guess like a strong KPI at the core of it, right? Everything that leads back to it.
Yep.
Interesting.
And now for every company, it depends on what they're focused on or things like that. But him walking me through that and kind of the logic for how he got there and why it was so important, I kind of really.
Interesting. Oh, it's good to know, right? Because you hear a lot from our manufacturer, you hear a lot from our customers, right? For customer A, it's downtime. Right? If I'm not running, I'm not making product, I'm not able to justify it. For customer B, it's the traceability. I'm not sure where my material is going. I'm not sure how much I'm consuming. I'm not sure where things are going. But it kind of relates back to scrap. And then it could be like even C, I don't know where my personnel are. I don't know how many people are staffed on a shift. I'm not sure where this is going, right? It's all kind of changing in that kind of sense, right? It's fascinating as we kind of go down this experiment or this journey of Industry 4.0 is a better way to put it, of how much we're now tracking and being more aware of things, right? It's no longer just assembling things and making sure they're out the door to the customer. It's, how did we assemble it? What was the quality into it? Where did we lose on this? How do we improve that? How do we be more efficient? How do we, cause less waste, for example, right?
Yep.
It's really kind of exploded in the last 10 years for sure.
hmm And another side of it too is I'm thinking more about ROI in general. I remember talking about this a little bit, kind of in the pre-interview too. So I think a lot of smart manufacturing projects focused on the cost side of things, right? How do I reduce costs, reduce scrap, add value by adding time back for people, things like that, right? Um, if you're at the right levels of an organization and kind of talking about the business leaders, there's usually other revenue opportunities that are important to the business that technology also might help them unlock. For example, I can think of a couple of food and beverage companies that are like smaller shops that maybe want to expand into new markets, right? Maybe you only do direct to customer sales today, but you want to evolve and do more business to business sales and sell more into restaurants or things like that, right? Maybe to do that, you need more traceability data and more official quality data to be able to convince these restaurants that you are of a certain caliber and that you're trustworthy and to meet federal requirements and things like that too, right? So maybe you need an MES project to improve your quality reporting and traceability reporting to unlock an entirely new market and revenue stream for your company, right? And a lot of the times the people that are kind of that this mind of kind of, I want to go and capture this market, or if I introduce this type of new product to this type of consumer, we can make XYZ money. They're not always connected to that manufacturing technology side and might not realize there's kind of a link there. And I would encourage a lot of integrators out there to look for more opportunities like that too, right? Where can I use technology to make you all more money, not just save you spending
Interesting. As the integrator, commonly we're brought in to do just that. We're here to save you money. We're here to make things more efficient. We don't necessarily come into a plan first thinking, I'm going to make you more money. How am I going to unlock a revenue stream? Right. It's kind of an interesting way to think about it. Now, in our experience, we've done a lot of food and bev, we've done a lot of pharma. Is there other industries that you think would kind of benefit from like what we're doing here with the, say, the MES or the Industry 4.0 type of thinking, going in the idea of the revenue stream like we were just talking about?
Yeah, I instead of maybe focusing on a vertical, I would maybe focus more on like a business size, right? I think that's I work with all sorts of companies of all sorts of different sizes, right? And they all have their pros and cons, but working with kind of a small to medium company that really has ambitions to grow and unlock new markets is maybe the most exciting thing for that I find to work with, right? Sure, it is nice to work with a big company and have to hit better quarterly numbers or whatever. But the idea of a small company that employs local people and they want to unlock a new market, and by applying this technology, they can double the size of their small business and employ more people and kind of boost the local economy in a different way that kind of those big behemoths can. I just think it's really interesting. And I think that we're also at a spot in the technology where it's more accessible to those groups of people than I've ever seen it. Another example I'll think of is I know a lot of like machine shops that are starting to adopt more smart manufacturing technology. And this is kind of the example we were talking about earlier, where their machines are completely disconnected. They do not have a plant network to speak of. They haven't been able to adopt smart manufacturing technology because they don't have a server to put it on, even if they were to, right? Like they literally don't have that infrastructure. But yeah, if you want to put a little tablet at every one of your assembly stations or CNC machines and have them connected to a cloud server that's running Ignition and serving up data and screens to them, you can do that at a price point without ever needing to buy servers or buy IT staff or things like that. The fact that you can go to cloud services for your infrastructure and to deploy solutions like this, I think just opens it up to new markets. And I think that those people need to hear it. I don't think that they all know that this is available to them just yet.
Because I think you bring up a great point, a common misconception of, say, your typical mom and pop shop of your local cities. They would see something like this. They would see these technologies, say, I would love to have that, but I'm too small for it. I'm never going to afford that. I can't budget for an IT team to support this, right? And now with like cloud technologies and the other aspects, that is a possibility, right? Like you said, you can have a tablet at a workstation. You can have operators monitor that information. And none of that really lives on site. Everything is up in the cloud and is accessible for you. And it really kind of opens the doors for them, right? And it's a good point you brought up too. It's less about focusing on the vertical and more on the horizontal, where you can actually reach out to more of those small to medium sized shops, right? You can really kind of expand where these technologies can be used. It's a great idea, right? It really opens the market for who we can reach out to, who we can build solutions for. It's fun, ultimately fun. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's true. It is a lot of fun. It's just you feel so impactful, right? Which is really great. And again, I don't want to dismiss big companies too. Boy, do I love selling hundreds of licenses at one time. It's really great.
As we all do. As we all do.
Yeah, and the thing that I think can kind of bring more success to some of those larger companies too, I would say, is like more willingness to try things and fail fast and move to the next one, right? That's kind of the disappointing trend maybe I've seen at some of the bigger companies is there's a lot of uncertainty right now, uncertainty around prices and tariffs, uncertainty around AI and platforms to pick and things like that. And I've seen that cause a lot of paralysis for a lot of these companies that are, I can't buy that MES software because we're still deciding on our global MES platform. Great. How long have you guys been going through that? 10 years. And they just make a decision on it, right? Like,
I mean, we can all find ourselves getting caught in that recycled stream of analysis paralysis. I'll look at this. I think it's a fit. It's not 100% a fit. So I'll look at the next one. We'll repeat that. A year has gone by. We're restarting the same thing, right?
yeah.
So and I kind of feel, and you can agree or disagree with me, but with the industry now, we do just that. We move a lot faster now. We fail a lot faster, and we take those risks because we can fail faster. We're not doing pilots that are 6 months. We're doing pilots that are 6 weeks or 2 days, right? Doesn't work, try another thing. Doesn't work, try another thing. Do you think that's a big opportunity for the industry now where we have these technologies, we can quickly find out where things don't fit, where things don't work?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I want companies doing it more, right? And I can, I do. I think of stories where a customer is coming to us and said, like, hey, like you're our last shop, right? Like I tried it with this platform. We did a 6-month pilot, it failed. I tried it with that. We did a 6-month pilot, it failed. And we're like, and I look at them like, oh, we can do that in a couple of weeks, And they like go you, right? And
Yeah. Dude, it's like a shock because they're like, I just had this bad experience, and you're almost like you're exercising the ghosts of previous projects, right? It's just like, just because that failed doesn't mean this one will. Like, let us help you in a sense.
yeah, exactly. And a failed pilot is not necessarily like a failed project, right? But that's maybe another like I think it's a piece that a lot of people miss when we talk about this failing fast, doing a lot of pilots, experimenting mentality is you learn a lot every time you fail too, right? You hopefully picked up some information that you'll be able to take into the next project. You at the very least learned that wasn't the platform for you guys, right? Or that you need to put in more effort to it, right? A lot of times I've seen people use this to learn more about their own company, right? The amount of times we've started a little MES investigation and had the production manager say, "Oh, well, I didn't know they were doing that." It happens all the time. So I think take the lessons. Don't consider a project failure to be a complete failure. Take the lessons learned from it and to pick the next pilot that you need to do and make it more successful. Yeah.
And I think I just see, my own experience. I think some of the most interesting or most successful projects start from more or less like a pilot that didn't really launch, not a pilot that failed to launch, right? Where You got into it, you put it in, you found that the business logic, the business rules, there's more into it, right? So that next launch, that next development, now it's ticking all the boxes because you've kind of done your discovery and you've done your discovery 2.0, and it's really tailored to what best fits the personnel and the business, and a lot more happy people after that one, but a little bit of pain up front, unfortunately.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, kind of changing path as we're going kind of down the podcast route here. I want to ask you a question about one of your more memorable experiences, kind of transitioning from Industry 3.0 to 4.0 and kind of going down, like we've been talking about, that connectivity route and actually, enhancing a process and seeing visible enhancement.
Yeah. I'd like to reach way back in my history for this one when I was at Grant working on a project, like even pre-MES. So I remember it was for a factory talk Vantage Point project to digitize a lot of the quality reporting for a food and beverage manufacturer, right? They were manually going out to chart recorders, recording certain temperatures, a couple of different set points, kind of doing that every single day, manually typing it into Excel, having to write a report. Half the time it was wrong. It was just such a nightmare for them to do it. And I had a long project to go in there, install Factory Talk Historian SE, collect in all of the data, get it into Vantage Points, do reporting on all of that to try to automate that full process. And I was a younger engineer. I want to say the project was probably a full year too. Like I was pretty embedded in the plant for a while. It was pretty comprehensive what we were doing. Um, and I went over budget because I was constantly like, this isn't good enough. Like, this doesn't work. Nitpicking this, X, Y, Z. Like, oh, they're going to hate it. And I remember turning it over to them and just then knocking their socks. But I know, like, with this customer who was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's like I have a magnifying glass. I can zoom. He said that specifically. I have a magnifying glass. And I can zoom in on all these little problems I didn't know that I had before. Like, this, I was just, man, and it reminded me a lot about reflecting on it, right? I think more about iterative design, and that now with some of the more rapid techniques that we've kind of picked up, I probably would have been showing them the results more frequently and kind of getting that feedback earlier and kind of making sure I was on the right path. But the big takeaway was really just that a lot of these plants really have like nothing to kind of start with, right? And I probably didn't need to crank at that for over a year and kind of go over budget, right? I probably could have given him something in 3 months that he would have been very, very happy with, and then continued to iterate, grow on that over the following 9 months too, right? So maybe you've landed somewhere different. It's like that agile cartoon where they kind of showed the person on the skateboard versus I don't know. It's not good to talk about cartoons on a podcast, I guess, is it?
Not always, but I do know what you mean when you see the skateboard and then how it kind of evolves or doesn't or de-evolves, right? And to go through that agile route, or those other ones where it's a swing. It's like what the engineer built, what the product manager said, what the customer really wanted. And, all right, I wanted to. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
feel that.
Uh-huh. So yeah, I mean it was really fun to work with, cut my teeth on that a lot, learned a lot about how just again, like a lot of these companies just need some visibility that I could have saved myself some time, budget, and pain by kind of interacting and kind of doing more iterative design with the customer. Um but it was also just really cool to just see how delighted they were. Like it honestly made them very happy and like happier to come to work knowing that they had this data at their fingertips. They didn't have to run around all day trying to get it.
I think what I love about these stories is they're what I would call, or what I call for myself, is the ones that keep you coming back, right? It's the ones that you see tangible improvement. You see people happier in their workplace, happier with what they're using. It ultimately makes their day to day, right? There's even projects of my own where, you're replacing a legacy project where taking an execution was a big challenge, or they had so many failures, or so many times the system would lock up, they'd lose data. And now you're putting a system in that they can rely upon, and it's just a stress point relieved, right? And I find when you bring up a story like this in this industry is what's exciting, right? It's exciting to bring forward a technology that's improving people's day-to-day lives, right? That,
Yep.
we're all working, we're all part of this working ecosystem, but if we can make that day-to-day working ecosystem better, these are the projects we want to keep doing. These are the things that we want to keep pushing forward in the industry, and kind of what this whole industry 4.0 is supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be making things better and better for people ultimately.
Yes. Well, and now I'm trying to do this for you guys, right? Like I'm trying to do this for more systems integrators and engineers and implementers out there, right? A lot of them, the same way that our customers and end users complain that maybe digital transformation isn't getting them the results they need. I know a lot of engineering teams and systems integrators that are frustrated that their tools aren't helping them get those results, right? One of my favorite versions of that story I just told that I run into now is when integrators and engineers call me and say, I have tried to solve this problem with 3 other pieces of software and I couldn't do it. And this has fixed this for me. Thank you. Like that is the best thing to hear.
I think, and I mean, again, that is what keeps you coming back, right? You are being the skeleton key. You are solving that challenge that has been a thorn in someone's side for weeks, months, years, decades, even, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's what this should be about, in my opinion. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to ask this as kind of one of the final questions to every podcast, and I'd like to bring it forward to everyone else. That last question was kind of coming from a previous interview, but what is an Industry 4.0 question that you're looking to be answered? And I want to pose that to my next guest and kind of share it as a kind of a community topic.
Yeah. So, selfish question, but I'm curious to kind of hear what your next guest thinks about it. So, I think that a lot of companies out there making buying decisions around their Industry 4.0 technologies, commonly kind of face kind of 2 categories of solutions, right? You have these big, excuse me, these big established players out there, your Rockwells, your Wonderwares, Avivas, things like that, but that are really well known and have a big history in manufacturing, but aren't really known for having the most cutting edge technology, right? They're legacy players. They tend to grow by acquisition. They don't have the latest, greatest kind of thing versus kind of smaller startups, right? That's kind of where more of the cutting edge technology comes in, but maybe they don't have that manufacturing pedigree. So who do you trust more with your digital transformation? Do you want to go to kind of maybe the older, slower, but maybe more reliable kind of companies that you might already have a relationship with? Or when you're doing something really new, does it make more sense to go to someone new and someone who is on the cutting edge and maybe a little bit riskier, but maybe for a little bit of a higher reward? I would love to kind of hear how other people think about that dichotomy.
I think that's a great question, right? Because we've heard it from both sides. We've heard it from, I want the known name, I want the 30 years in the industry name, I want someone that, isn't going to disappear overnight. And then we've also heard it from, I don't want to be held to just one person, one big supplier, one long running license. I want something more personal. I want, an actual person to person engineering experience. I want the a la carte almost, right? And where I pay once and then I'll pay as I need to, right? So it's a great question because it's funny to hear from different perspectives on what is the decision, even from different verticals of industries or different sizes of company too, right? I'm happy to continue that conversation for our next guest. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it.
It was great having you on the 4.0 podcast. Sam, it's always great to catch up with you. I love to hear everything you guys are doing from Kanoa and what you're doing with Kanoa in the Industry 4.0 perspective, and hope to have you on again. Looking forward to talking with you more. I'd like to thank all of our viewers and our listeners for taking the time to actually hear us out. Hear Sam and I kind of go back and forth. Before we close out, Sam, is there anything else you want to kind of plug, highlight, or talk about with Kanoa and things that are kind of coming up with Kanoa?
Yeah, no. Well, first I'll say thanks to Grantek for keeping the podcast alive. I'm sorry I didn't get to do an interview with Dave when he was doing it, but congratulations, man, on your new hosting duties. You did a today. I approve. Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's high praise.
No, so it's super cool you guys are still doing this. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, it's very, very fun. A lot of cool stuff going on with Kanoa, right? So you can go and check out our website, kanoa.ai, to learn more about us. Again, we are making off-the-shelf NES productized solutions on the Ignition platform. We do scheduling, we do OEE, we do quality forms, SPC, traceability, all sorts of cool stuff, with more coming later in the year too. So we're always improving the product and adding in more features. So if you're a systems integrator and you want to work with us on applying the software, or if you are an end user who is looking for more smart manufacturing solutions, give me a call. I would love to show you what we're doing over at Kanoa and how we can help you out.
That's awesome. Hopefully we get some more people getting used to the Kanoa ecosystem and get that broadcasted across more places.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Anytime. With that, everyone, thanks again for listening. Please, if you haven't already, follow Grantek on LinkedIn and stay up to date with all of our latest podcasts and what we're getting up to. Subscribe to the Industry 4.0 podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions, feedback, thoughts on Industry 4.0, or you want to talk to me personally, you can email us at info@grantek.com. And join us next time on the Industry 4.0 podcast with Grantek.